In the previous video, we saw that a figure of speech is a way to use figurative language to change the meaning of words creatively. It covered the basics only, so we didn't look at many types of figures of speech. And it didn't tell the whole story either. Figures of speech can be categorized as tropes and schemes, and each of these categories has subcategories. Well, many of you asked for a follow-up, so stick around and let's take a deeper look at figures of speech. Hi, welcome to Snap Language. I'm Mark Franco. In the first video, we saw that when you say something literally, the words you use have their conventional meaning. When you say something figuratively, what you say needs to be interpreted because it actually means something else. But that is one category of figures of speech. Figures of speech that play with the meaning of words like that are called tropes. Sometimes they're called figures of thought too. Remember, they play with meanings or ideas. Schemes, the other category of figures of speech, also create an effect, but you do that by playing with the structure of the language. You can change word order, omit or repeat words, or arrange sentences in unusual ways. Both tropes and schemes create meaning or nuances in meaning. They just go about it differently. Okay, we need some examples here. Are you taking notes? I'll start with two disclaimers though. First, there are different ways of categorizing figures of speech depending on the school of thought you subscribe to. Also, when I was doing research for this video, I found a list with as many as 1,489 names of figures of speech. So, no, you won't find them all here. Let's look at tropes first. Tropes themselves can be divided into 5 subcategories. In the first subcategory, you refer to something as something else. We saw similes in the first video where you refer to an idea as another using like or as. This bread is as dry as a bone. Bread? Bone? Oh, you describe the dryness of the bread by comparing it to the dryness of a bone. Her teeth are as white as snow. He ran like a scared rabbit. They fought like cats and dogs. So similes create an association to convey meaning. Metaphors also do that, but the quality associated with the comparison isn't always straightforward. It doesn't use as or like, and you must infer the association. Her voice was music to my ears. Her voice, music, pleasant, comforting. They worked in the shadows. How do they work? Shadows in secret? In hiding. You should notice that the association in metaphors are often less explicit than those in similes. Life is like a game of chess is a simile because like is used and life and chess don't have much to do with one another. You know this is not literal. Now, life is a game of chess is a metaphor. The comparison is implied. It's up to you to detect the figure of speech and interpret its meaning. In both cases, you also need to interpret the quality that life and a game of chess might share. Complicated, difficult, unpredictable. You might interpret it as boring if you're not into chess, but, well, you know that's not it. As part of our culture, we share the common idea that chess is a difficult, unpredictable game, whether you agree or not. An unexpected metaphor can be used creatively as a literary device. The comparison seems incompatible, even incorrect, but as you analyze it, you realize it creates an interesting effect. This type of metaphors is called a mixed metaphor or catachresis. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Comparing revenge to a dish may seem odd at first, but it's meaningful. It means you should wait for the right time to get even dispassionately. I've heard many of his ideas. They're red balloons. Huh? that soar into an empty sky, never to be seen again. As a mixed metaphor or catachresis, this is kind of a poetic way of saying someone has a lot of lofty ideas that never get put into action. You see here how being straightforward and simply saying he never follows through with his ideas isn't as effective or colorful as using a mixed metaphor. It delivers the same message, but with an added punch. Another type of figures of speech by association is personification. Here you associate an inanimate object or an animal with a quality or trait that human beings have. That leftover pizza in the fridge is calling my name. The fires swallow the building in a matter of minutes. The old car moaned as it went up the steep hill. Metonymy is a trope where essentially what you say represents something else. For example, when you say Wall Street is doing well, you're using Wall Street to mean the investment industry because one is closely associated with the other. The White House made an announcement. Here, literally, the White House is where the President of the U.S. lives, but buildings don't make announcements. Of course, in this sentence, it refers to the President or the President's staff, not the building. I'm all ears. Here, all ears represents someone's undivided attention. This company needs new blood. Blood here represents people. Synecdoche is similar to metonymy. The difference is that synecdoche is a figure of speech where the whole stands in for the part or for the essence of a thing. Or the other way around, you can use the part to refer to the whole. Nice wheels. Here, wheels represents the whole car. The part represents the whole. To win this war, we'll need boots on the ground. Boots represent soldiers or troops. The part represents the whole. When you take a head count, of course, you're not just counting heads, but whole people. I never use cash anymore, only plastic. Here, the material something is made of represents that something. A euphemism is the use of something pleasant or agreeable to mean something unpleasant or disagreeable. They're used to avoid talking directly about things you're socially uncomfortable with. He passed away or he passed on are euphemisms for he died. To pass wind is a euphemism for fart. Expecting is a euphemism used by people uncomfortable with the word pregnant. If you're not, you might say, she was knocked up. If so, you're using a dysphemism, which gets the opposite effect of a euphemism. He's in the boneyard uses a dysphemism for cemetery. The nut house is a dysphemism for a mental institution. Interestingly, the euphemistic mental institution itself has acquired a negative connotation over time, so now the more euphemistic term might be a mental health facility. It's interesting how language use changes over time. We have a video for that. A term that was once considered fine to use can acquire a negative connotation, so we create a euphemism for it. In time, the new euphemism becomes negatively charged, and we come up with a new euphemism for that. And the process just keeps going. For example, a cripple became a handicapped person, which became a disabled person or a person with a disability. People have even come up with a differently abled person. Interestingly, many people with disabilities dislike overly euphemistic terms like that. They come across as patronizing. Another subcategory of tropes creates meaning through wordplay or puns. Onomatopoeia plays on the sounds of words to imitate what we're referring to. In fact, many words in English are onomatopoeic. For example, you honk a horn, you hear a thump in the middle of the night, you tell someone to shush, or you drink something in one gulp. As a literary device, onomatopoeia can make your writing colorful and add emotion to your ideas by creating the sounds associated with them. A pun is a play on words. You can use words that have different spellings but sound the same, or words that have the same spelling but mean different things. I witnessed a kidnapping yesterday. It's alright though. The kid woke up. You know, a kid napping. Time flies like an arrow. Fruit flies like a banana. I'll let you think about that one. Don't waste time writing with that pencil. It's pointless. Substitutions are another subcategory of tropes. Anthemeria uses one part of speech for another, like a noun for a verb or a verb for a noun, and so on. This book is a good read. I want to stay home tonight and Netflix until I fall asleep. I forgot to hashtag my post. Periphrasis is when you use a name to describe the characteristic associated with it. He's good looking, but he's no Brad Pitt. Mary was the Einstein in my school. Overstatements and understatements are another subcategory of tropes. A hyperbole is a figure of speech where you highlight the characteristic you're describing by emphasizing or exaggerating it. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Well, doubtful, but I get what you mean. His brain is the size of a pea. Yeah, that's very small. Careful how you use hyperbole, though. It can come across as a bit abrasive. An understatement highlights a characteristic too, but by emphasizing its opposite. For example, you're in the middle of a huge storm and you say, "It's a bit breezy outside." Semantic inversions are another subcategory of tropes. Here you say one thing but mean another, or create an effect by inverting the common meaning of words. An oxymoron, for example, is a pair of words that contradict each other. An open secret is a good example. A quote attributed to Henry Ford is, "A business that makes nothing but money is a poor business." The contradiction is in making a lot of money and being poor. Andy Warhol described himself as, "I am a deeply superficial person." An oxymoron creates a figure of speech because the meaning of the words goes beyond the literal meaning that the words have by themselves. It also creates an effect. It draws attention to the quality you're describing. For example, if you say, "Everybody was quiet," it doesn't have the same effect as saying, "The silence was deafening." Or, "John's lazy," versus, "John is always busy doing nothing." Yikes. A rhetorical question is a way to express something in the form of a question, though it's not really meant as a question. Let's say you're discussing something perplexing. You might say, "Well, who knows?" You're not really asking who knows something. This is just a rhetorical question, meaning this is perplexing. If you're given choices but aren't excited by any of them, you might say, "Well, what's the difference?" Again, not really a question. There are many types of rhetorical questions, such as antiphora, where you ask questions and answer them yourself. Have I made a mistake? Yes, I have. But who hasn't? Nobody, not even you. How important is this? Well, it could save your life one day. Wouldn't you want to know something that important? I'm sure you would. If you ask rhetorical questions when you're deliberating with yourself, it's called aporia. Should I stay or should I go? But what are the consequences of my decision? Is it brave to stay and fight? Is it wise to leave and avoid conflict? These are not real questions that need to be answered. This is just using aporia to express that you're deliberating on a topic. Epiplexis is a type of rhetorical question you use to show disapproval, surprise, or even contempt. When you say, "What were you thinking?" Again, not really a question. This is just a way to show disapproval. "Can you believe what he did?" You can even use a question to affirm something strongly. That's called erotima. Why are you such a coward? Isn't that amazing? In a double negative or litote, you say what you don't not mean to mean what you mean. Huh? Well, you express what you want to say by expressing the negative of its opposite. You're not completely wrong. How was the party? It wasn't a total disaster. That was no small feat. Depending on how they're used, double negatives can produce both positive and negative messages. That's why they're often used in backhanded compliments. You're not as naive as I thought. Thank you? I wasn't very disappointed by your presentation. Well, were you a little disappointed? There are quite a few other types of tropes in each of these categories, but these are the main ones. Should I include everything in this video? If I do, we'll be here all day. So let's move on to schemes, the other broad category of figures of speech. So keep in mind, tropes are a category of figures of speech that play with the meaning of words. Schemes play with the arrangement of words. They play with the structure of the language to create an effect. Schemes also have subcategories. To simplify things in this video, I'll combine similar categories. The first category plays with the balance or arrangement of words and ideas. Parallelism is the arrangement of similar ideas in a parallel structure. Thai dishes are pleasant to the eyes, sweet to the nose, and hot to the tongue. Words are cheap, actions are gold. Here's a famous example of parallelism by President John F. Kennedy.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
When the parallel structure contrasts ideas, it's called antithesis. Here's a famous antithesis by Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful.
And Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." Climax is a type of scheme where you arrange words in order of importance. He lived for his family, for his country, and for the betterment of mankind, and for the whole universe. Biologists seek to understand organisms, ecosystems, and the fabric of life itself. Another type of parallelism is called zeugma, where a word governs more than one part of the sentence. I opened my mouth in a can of worms. Because of his alcoholism, he lost his family, his job, and his mind. The tornado destroyed his house, his business, but not his will to rebuild. Another category of schemes creates an effect by changing word order. An anastrophe uses unusual word order to put focus on certain ideas. Smiling, he ran the race, and with his head held high, he lost. He saw the wild bear, hungry and angry, standing right in front of him. Patience, I do not have. A parenthesis, as you'd expect, inserts a clause within a sentence which breaks the normal flow of information. The danger in ignoring your problems, I'm sure you're aware of it, is that they keep getting worse. As I looked at the beach, it was the beach I played on so many times as a child, memories rushed through my mind. Schemes can also be categorized as omissions and repetitions. An ellipsis is the omission of a word or idea that is implied from the context. I like biology. Physics, not so much. The tornado destroyed his house and his business, not his will to rebuild. Alliteration is a repetition of sounds in a sentence, usually the first sound. Bring family and fast friends to our Friday fajita fest. Sam whistled a sweet song to soothe sad Susan's spirit. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds. Jack laughed at the fat cat that sat on the mat. Having botched the job, Rob sobbed. Anaphora is the repetition of the same word or words in successive clauses. I need it right here, right now, right away. I told you how to do it. I told you when to do it. I told you why to do it, yet you did nothing. You can see that tropes and schemes are a bit different. Tropes play with the meaning of words and ideas. Schemes play with the structure of the language. What is similar between tropes and schemes is that they're both devices that create an effect. They're both something you do with a language so you don't sound like a robot, always saying things the same way. You can deliver a message literally. You're straightforward and say exactly what you mean. But when you use a figure of speech, you can deliver the same message, but you add flavor and nuance to it. Before you start adding things to the comments like, oh, but in this book they use different categories, or they say that this figure of speech is called something else, keep in mind these are not written in stone. The ancient Greeks were already fascinated by rhetorical devices, and they had their own ways of categorizing things. There are other ways to categorize and subcategorize figures of speech to study language and understand rhetorical devices. The important thing is to know that understanding these devices helps you understand how you can manipulate language to create meaning. It helps you appreciate how writers use literary devices. If for no other reason, understanding figures of speech helps you appreciate how language is more than just grammar and words and their meanings. Human beings have this amazing ability to use language creatively and express complex thoughts with nuance and even beauty. Can you believe that when I was recording this video, the camera shut itself off here and I didn't even notice? So I wanted to wrap things up. Thanks for making it this far, and I wanted to let you know that Snap Language has a website now. We'll be using it to post extra materials that complement the videos, articles, materials for students and instructors, and things like that. So always check the description below any of our videos for links to supplemental materials. You can help Snap Language by subscribing, sharing our videos, and helping promote the channel. I'd really appreciate that because your support helps me keep making these videos. And until the next time, thanks for stopping by and watching this video. Is it time to go? Yeah. Bye.